I'm Dilys Morgan and I'm a counsellor. I run a website for grandparents called grandparentsnow.com, and I'm the Agony aunt for Mature Times, the newspaper and magazine for the over 50s. I started in this business more than 20 years ago now when my children were quite small, and I decided it might be useful to have some counselling skills in my toolbox for bringing them up. I think I was a bit worried about the upcoming teenage years and I wasn't sure how I was going to cope, so I thought training as a counsellor would be a good idea. And I think probably what I've benefited from most of all are two skills. The first is to learn about good listening, because I think a lot of the listening that goes on today is very superficial. We tend to listen to the top 5 or 10% of what's going on around us. Everybody's so busy, there's so much going on, they're on their mobile phones or they're on their laptops. And so good listening is a crucial skill for bringing up a family. And I learned how to do that by actually being one-to-one, looking into people's eyes, listening not just to what is said, but reading between the lines and often listening out for what goes unsaid actually, and then checking back and clarifying that you've understood properly. And after listening, I think the next skill that I learned that was helpful was to empathise, so that I could put myself into my children's shoes when they had a problem and try and see things from their point of view, rather than the kind of natural parental instinct which is to go in and fix things for them. So I would encourage them to solve their own problems their own way. And those skills I've sort of carried on into my professional life, really. And when I started working as a counsellor, I started specialising in young people, from really quite small children who were devastated because their parents were going through separation and divorce, perhaps. And they didn't really have anyone to talk to. They had no one to turn to, because children are very caring and considerate of their parents, I find, and they don't want to dump their problems on people that they can see are already going through tough times. So young children do need someone to confide in, I think, when things are tough like that. And I had some success in helping the kids, not obviously changing their total circumstances, because nothing was ever going to get their parents back together again, but helping them find their way through so that they found their voice really and could ask for things that would make their lives just a little bit better. And then I went on and worked from there with young people with all kinds of problems, from eating disorders and those who were self-harming to those who were abusing substances or being bullied, or even being the bullies. Sometimes they would be brought to me. And I learned, surprisingly, that one of the biggest problems young people suffer from seems to be shyness. I had a number of clients who were really crippled by shyness and hardly dared leave the house because of this terrible feeling that they didn't amount to much, that they weren't likeable, that nobody would ever like them, and that they could never get friends. So I helped a number of people, at least I like to think I helped them, and they seem to think I did, in getting over that and getting out and about and getting lives back for themselves. And I think the insights that I gained from working with young people were then very helpful to my work with adults, because, of course, I could help parents learn a bit more about what might be going on for their youngsters. So I've been able to work with parents of very small children who are having problems with toddlers, right through to parents of teenagers who are lying around all day, not getting up off the sofas, or maybe going through some of the more harmful experiences like having eating disorders or self-harming and those awful things that happen to some young people from time to time. And then when I became an agony aunt, I sort of became exposed to a whole new range of people's problems, because these crossed every age group and every kind of person. And so I suppose I have tried to help people who are going through relationship problems, family problems, difficulties with neighbours, difficulties with in-laws, all those kind of situations. And now I've reached a great age, and I've founded a website for grandparents, and I'm the Agony aunt for Mature Times, which is the newspaper for the over 50s. So now I'm encountering a different range of problems again. Of course, many of them are the same. There are still a number of older people who are shy and don't know how to go out and make friends, particularly if their relationships have broken down or they've just lost a partner. It can be really tough for them to start all over afresh. There's also quite a bit of shyness around, but there are also people who are involved in difficult relationships breaking down, or maybe there are people who've just been bereaved and are very low. I don't think they'll ever get over it. And then we come on to the more family-related issues with grandparents and in-laws and daughters-in-law. And families are wonderful things when they work well, but sometimes they don't. And I've had a number of grandparents bring their problems to the website and to me personally, some because they literally aren't allowed to see their grandchildren, which is really devastating and heartbreaking for them. And that may be because they've moved to the other side of the world, or it may be because their own children are going through a relationship breakdown and prevent one set of grandparents having access to the children, which is really tough for both the grandchildren and the grandparents, I think. But there are also situations where grandparents don't seem to be allowed in on their grandchildren's lives very much, even when they're living round the corner. On the other hand, I hear from a number of grandparents who feel a bit put upon and think they actually see too much of their grandchildren and don't really know how to say no. So we do quite a lot of work on learning how to say no in a very polite but calm and direct way, so that they're not taken advantage of and life works out quite well for them. But there are problems, it seems, between mothers-in-law and daughters-in-law quite often, and I think that's a great shame, and I think an awful lot can be done to improve that situation, because it's really nice and helpful for both sets when they can all get on and everybody can have a bit of an input to the grandchildren from time to time. My method of working is person-centred counselling, which basically means I, as I said earlier, try to listen to you. I would listen really carefully to your problems, try to clarify, to check that I have understood fully where you're coming from. I would then try to empathise, put myself in your shoes. Before then, really kind of taking hold of your hand and walking along beside you and helping you find your own solutions to your own problems, because I really believe that is the best way forward for us all. And I have held a number of people's hands along the years, and I'd be very happy to hold yours too if you feel you need it. I suppose I do what I do because, having done it for a while, I find it terribly fulfilling and rewarding. It's a wonderful feeling when you can take someone from a position, perhaps someone who was really, really shy and not having a life, to a position a bit further down the line where they're actually going out and doing things and meeting people and reporting back to you on how well it's going. So it's fantastic when it works well.